Some of the wealthiest people I know don't look wealthy at all. They could easily afford a Ferrari but drive a 10-year-old Toyota. They have the money for luxury brands, but prefer shopping at ordinary stores. They quietly hold millions in their bank accounts, and you'd never know it by looking at them. Here's the truth most people miss. And real wealth isn't about what you see. It's about what happens behind the scenes. It's in the smart investments, the disciplined financial habits, and the long-term decisions that rarely make it to social media, but make all the difference over time. NNHI. I'm Tawfiq. I'm a qualified accountant and a former investment banker. After nearly a decade in the finance industry, I've learned that wealth isn't built through luck or flashy spending. It's built through intentional habits. Subtle, powerful choices that compound quietly behind the scenes. In this series, I'm going to share 7 key habits I've observed among people who've built true, lasting wealth. These habits aren't loud or obvious, but they're the reason some people build real financial freedom, while others stay stuck in the cycle of earning and spending. Let's begin. One of the smartest habits of quietly wealthy people? They automate their finances completely. At first glance, it might look like laziness, but in reality, it's strategic efficiency. Wealthy people don't waste time every month deciding how much to save, where to invest, or which bills to pay first. They set up smart financial systems once and let those systems work for them, automatically, consistently, and without emotion. Here's how it works. NTHE moment their paycheck hits. It's split automatically. A portion goes straight into savings, and another into investments and in bills, paid without lifting a finger. I started doing this a few years ago, and honestly, it changed everything. Before I even saw my salary, money was being funneled into my emergency fund. Once that was fully funded, it started flowing into my investment accounts. My fixed expenses were handled on autopilot. No decision fatigue, no second guessing, no missed opportunities. Because the truth is, when money management relies on willpower, it eventually breaks. There will always be that tempting voice saying, maybe I'll invest next month. I deserve that new jacket right now. NBUT. Quietly wealthy people don't rely on motivation. They make smart choices once and let their systems carry the load every month. That's not laziness, that's leverage. Quietly wealthy people have a very different relationship with spending. They understand a simple truth that most people overlook. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. Warren Buffett. Take this example. They might spend $200 on a high-quality pair of boots that last a decade, but they'll pass on a trendy $50 pair that'll fall apart in 6 months. They'll buy a reliable used car that holds its value, instead of financing a flashy new model that loses 20% the moment it leaves the lot. Their spending isn't driven by trends or appearances. It's driven by longevity and utility. Before making a purchase, they don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "Is this worth what I'm paying for it? Will this add value to my life over time?" Because the truth is, quietly wealthy people know that, and they spend accordingly. And most people are obsessed with how much they earn. They chase higher salaries, brag about pay raises, and define success by income brackets. But quietly wealthy people? They see it differently. For them, it's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep and grow. And I learned this the hard way. And back, when I worked in investment banking, I had a solid income, but I spent nearly all of it. Nice dinners, luxury clothes, spontaneous weekends away. On the surface, I looked successful. But financially, my net worth was barely moving. In fact, for the first few years, it was basically zero. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You can earn $100,000 a year and still be broke. Nor you can earn $50,000 and steadily build real wealth. If you're intentional. NNTHE difference lies in net worth. What you own minus what you owe. Quietly wealthy people track this religiously. They know where their money is going. They review their assets and liabilities regularly. And they focus on growing that gap consistently. over time. And if you've never tracked your net worth before, this is a great place to start. In fact, I've built a full financial well-being toolkit that walks you through this process step by step. It's the exact system I used with high net worth clients in my banking days, broken down into a 94-page workbook and a simple, intuitive dashboard. The goal? To help you build a clear, personalized wealth plan without overwhelm. You can check it out at twofiq.me/plan, link in the description. NNBUT. Whether you use a toolkit or a notebook, here's what matters: NIF. You want to build real wealth. Stop focusing on income alone and start tracking what truly counts: your net worth. Here's one of the biggest mindset shifts that quietly wealthy people make. They think long-term, NNOT, not even just a few years. They think in decades. While most people are focused on how to afford their next holiday or upgrade their phone next month, the quietly wealthy are asking where do I want to be financially in 10, 20, 30 years? They understand the power of compound growth, and they give it the one ingredient it needs most: time. They know that every dollar they invest today has the potential to multiply over the years. They don't need instant gratification because they're playing the long game, and they trust the process. It's not always easy. When I was in my early 20s, thinking 20 years ahead felt almost impossible. It seemed too far away to matter. But here's the reality. Those years are going to pass anyway. And when they do, you'll either have not a pile of things you barely remember buying, nor freedom to do what you want, when you want, and quietly wealthy people choose the second. They live modestly today, not because they can't afford more, but because they're trading short-term indulgence for long-term independence. That's not sacrifice. That's strategy. And if you're wondering how to start thinking this way, it begins with asking what will my future self thank me for? And answer that. And act accordingly. NIF. There's one habit that sets quietly wealthy people apart. It's this: they don't rely on a single source of income. They understand something crucial. Depending on just one paycheck, no matter how big, is risky. Because if that paycheck stops, so does your entire lifestyle. That's why quietly wealthy people are always looking for ways to diversify how money flows into their life. Now, this doesn't mean they're juggling 5 side hustles or burning themselves out with endless work. It simply means they're making their money work for them, not just earning, but building. Some examples: they invest in stocks and receive dividends in. They buy property and earn rental income. They might run a small business on the side or sell a digital product in, or even use interest from high-yield accounts or bonds in. It doesn't have to be big. In the beginning, even an extra $100 a month can be powerful. Why? Because it adds up. And more importantly, it grows in multiple income streams, equals in checkmark, more financial security in checkmark, less stress if one source dries up in checkmark, faster wealth building through compounding, and perhaps most importantly, it gives them options. NIF. Something happens to their main job or the economy takes a hit. They're not in panic mode. They have backup. They have breathing room. Quietly wealthy people are always looking for ways to multiply their money without multiplying their stress. They understand this core truth: trading time for money will always be limited. Investing money to make more money? That's scalable. When crisis hits, most people panic. Think back to the 2008 financial crash. Many investors, heavily in debt and living beyond their means, were hit hard. They reacted with fear, selling assets at the worst time, making rash decisions, or spiraling into debt. Quietly wealthy people behave differently. They didn't react, they responded. What's the difference? Reacting is impulsive and emotional. Responding is deliberate and thoughtful. Instead of panicking, they took a step back. They looked at the bigger picture. They cut unnecessary expenses, reevaluated their investments, and sometimes they even found opportunities to buy undervalued assets when everyone else was selling in a frenzy. This mindset, staying calm, flexible, and focused, gave them a huge advantage. Because they weren't trying to impress anyone. They were playing the long game. This calm resilience is what allows quietly wealthy people to weather storms, whether recessions, personal setbacks, or market crashes, and come out stronger on the other side. NNTHE, quietly wealthy, don't react to circumstances. They intentionally respond with clear-headed decisions, patience, and flexibility. And that wraps up the 7 habits of the quietly wealthy. NNIF. You enjoyed this? I highly recommend watching my video on why looking poor is important. It dives deeper into mindset and perception. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated with all my latest videos. NNSEEU next time.